Hi, I'm Judah Mischel, and you're listening to The Thread, powered by Meaningful Minute. The fifth step in Rav Judah's pathway, his derech, toward Teshuva, is the last letter of the word Teshuva, hey, Hatznei aleches im Hashem Elokecha, to live with Tznius. What does it mean to live with Tznius, with modesty? Hatznei alechet, in the perspective of Rav Judah, is the directive to live our lives through the lens of pnimius, of internality, of depth. Tznius means to strive to live a life of personal dignity, of discretion, privacy, and of boundaries. All of these things are fundamental to any type of healthy relationship. And it's important, as many have pointed out, to remember to speak about Tznius in a tzanua way. Just talking about things which are private and inside, on the outside, already is pushing the boundary, so to speak. Tznius is not simply a system of preventing us from sin or concealing that which ought not to be expressed or shown in public. Tznius is a posture of living. That ensures that we and our priorities, our lives and our choices are bamakom, that we're in place, that we're living and cultivating a knowledge of what's appropriate, that there's a right time and place for all that we say and all that we do. Tznius is a trait that focuses on us, on what's real, on what's lasting in our lives, what's most essential to our existence. The self-respect of Tznius includes honoring the difference between behaviors and experiences that belong in a private setting, in a private space, inside, behind closed doors, and behavior and activity that belongs in a public sphere. Each have their place. Each have their makom. Everything that exists, everything in this world has an outside and an inside. Even ideas, movements, emotions, places, objects, words, everything that exists has an inside and an outside dimension. When we condition ourselves to be people of tznius, tznuim, meaning people of cultivating this step of yearning toward internality, toward depth, toward pnimius, then we're able to recognize the dichotomy that's present in every phenomenon and aspect of creation. There's things that we could sense, that we could smell, that we could taste, that we can measure, that we can feel and touch. And that's the outside, that's the chitzoniyut. And then there's something which exists beneath that, the heart of the matter, the pnimius. The midah of tznius, the avoda of tznius, the step in Teshuva called Hatznei alechet, directs us toward recognizing and allowing us to distinguish and become people that are aware of Elokus, of the godliness, which is the heart of everything. The Ribbono Shel Olam and His will, that spark of divine vitality that exists in all, that we learned innocently with Tmimus and experience through Shivisi in our constant awareness. And that we've learned is a loving presence in our lives and in everything that we do in Bechol, Derechecha Da'ehu. When we come to Tznius, that this final stop on Rav Judah's prescription, we understand that in order to be connected to that force of the world called the Ribbono Shel Olam, we have to be able to look beneath the surface, to find that vitality which is pulsating within every aspect of our world. Hatznei alechet shifts our focus from being concerned with how things feel and how much they cost and what they taste like and what we look like on the outside to what really lies beneath the surface on the inside, to being people of pnimius, internal people. One of the great teachers of Torah, one of the great Gaonim of our generation was Rav Moshe Shapiro Zatzal. He was a thinker and a Maggid Shir and a Rosh Kollel, somebody who just had a mastery of every area of Torah knowledge revealed and concealed, and delivered dozens of shiurim every week. Brilliant, insightful, penetrating in depth in all areas of Torah. In a very moving and thoughtful hesped by one of Rav Moshe Shapira's closest talmidim, Rabbi Dr. Akiva Tatz, he shared an anecdote which really captures both Rav Moshe and also I believe a real element of this final step in Rav Zusha's pathway. As a young man before his bar mitzvah, Rav Moshe would spend the end of Shabbos, the final moments of Shabbos, each week at a small shal shudis in the Ger Shtibel in Tel Aviv. There was a time where the Chassidim were in Tel Aviv, and there's a small group of elderly Holocaust survivors that learned to appreciate the ways and the wisdom of the lost world of Polish Chassidus. And Rav Moshe sat there and really drew from them and learned a lot from them. One of the older men, who was a quiet, unassuming, modest Chassidish guy, shared an insight that had a major impact on the young Rav Moshe, and he would refer to it often. When the Aron Kodesh was returned to Klal Yisrael from the Plishtim, so Pasuk describes the scene. It was like a very festive scene. It was a big deal. Finally, the Aron Kodesh came back from the hands of our enemies. There was a time in Jewish history where we knew there's us and them. The Aron Kodesh was in the hands of our enemies. So all of Klal Yisrael came out to celebrate the restoration of Torah, of the Aron Kodesh, the sign, the symbol of Jewish life and living, and also the Jewish pride and honor back to its proper place. The Pasuk says, "V'David, the king, David HaMelech, V'David mecharker b'chol oz, lifnei Hashem." David HaMelech came out and he danced with all of his strength before Hashem. He did somersaults and he danced and did all sorts of movements. And David HaMelech's wife, Mischel bat Shaul, she wasn't so thrilled. She was disappointed in his behavior. She criticized the way that he danced. He was like dancing with reckless abandon. It seemed like it wasn't befitting. And she said, "No, is this the way that Melech Yisrael? Is this the way that a king should behave? Ke'echad harekim." She said, like one of the people who were empty, like a commoner. And inside Vativas lo beliba, she knocked him, she despised him, she kind of like ripped on her husband and was embarrassed by him in her heart. When David HaMelech understood this whole thing, he got the vibes and took Michal's criticism. And David HaMelech, you can imagine the experience. David HaMelech says to his wife, "V'nikalosi od mizos." Not only would I do it again. He doubled down. I don't know if this is not David HaMelech's Shalom Bayis here, but it's David HaMelech standing up for the honor of God and Torah and the Jewish people. David HaMelech says, not only would I do it again, but v'nekalosi od mizos, I would lower myself even further. I would do an extra backflip. I would do even more. Vayisi shafal be'enai. Even if I look lowly, even if it would lower my esteem among people potentially, I would do it again and I'd do it even more. What that indicates is that Michal wasn't only frustrated that her husband, that David HaMelech, appeared undignified, that his shirt got wrinkled and maybe he kicked up some dust. When David HaMelech danced before the Aron Kodesh, Lifnei Hashem, he was in a state of incredible dveikus. He was completely before God, attached to Hashem, and in that trance, that ecstatic dveikus, his essence, his etzem, his essential soul came out. Who he really was came out. On the outside, a king has to look a certain way and conduct a certain way. There's an outside and there's an inside. The heart of the king was publicly revealed. His olam hapnim, his inner world, came out. Beneath all of the nobility and all the dignity and all the trappings of the Malchus lies a heart that was on fire for the Rebbeinu Shalom, and that came out. Michal, the daughter of the king, the daughter of Shaul HaMelech, Michal censured her husband for seemingly revealing too much of his inner world. There's certain things that remain inside, like an iceberg. What we see on the outside belies so much more that lies beneath the surface. She said, "You're ke'echad harekim. You're like one of the commoners. Now you're like someone who's emptied their entire inner self. You've opened yourself up. You've exposed that which ought to remain concealed. You've emptied yourself of your internality, of your pneumius, through inappropriate overexposure." That's what Michal bat Shaul is saying. By opening up that part of himself for others to see, Michal was afraid that David HaMelech had drained his spiritual reservoir. Maybe he's going to be out of battery now. He put it all out there for everyone to see. And once it's on public display, even if it's appropriate, even if it's erlich, even if it's ernst, even if it's appropriate, it drains the battery when other people see it. That which was private was made public. David HaMelech's emphatic response, V'nikalosi od mizos, directly addresses his wife's concerns. Do you really think that I exposed my true deepest self? V'nikalosi od mizos. I would do it even more. I would gladly lower myself even more. If that's what's called lower, there's layers. You think that I showed everything I got? You think that they saw the best of me? There's layers and layers and layers of depth, more inside and more inside, deeper and deeper inside. The reservoir of my ruchnius, of my inner world, is so deep and it still remains hidden. For Kvod Shamayim, I gave the world a glimpse. I did flips. I did somersaults. In front of the Aron. But I exposed just a glimpse, just the tip of the iceberg. My true self remains unfathomably concealed. There's so much more that lies beneath the surface. When we go through our lives attuned to the midah of Hatznei Aleches, we understand that the Ein HaBracha Shora, that blessing really rests in a place that's Samoi Min Ha'ayin, that's concealed. The real magic takes place behind closed doors, beyond that which can be seen, beyond that which could be felt, beyond that which can be measured. Kvod Elokim Haster Davar. The glory of God is a concealed matter. So Teshuva is something which is, we keep saying over and over, it's not hard. Rav Judah is telling us it's not hard. Beficha ubilvav chala asoso. It's in the way we feel, and the way we frame our consciousness, and the way we think about things. Beficha, the way we speak about things, the words that we use, ula asoso, in our actions. A couple of takeaways about Tznius, which all too often is spoken about in a non-sanua way. All too often is spoken about in an external way, in a way which simply measures the type of clothing we wear and length, and everything has its place. Everything has its place. But to not miss the main thing. Tznius, ironically, is about keeping the main thing. Putting aside that which is in the world of chitzonius, and attaching ourselves to that which lies beneath the surface, the world of pnimius, our will, our intention. So to be a person who lives a life which is tsanua, someone who is searching for opportunities to create a very special, sacred and secret private place in the world. That means to be among people, to be in public, to be working and doing and learning and engaged in the world around us with people in ways that are appropriate, but to know what it means to be bamakom, to check and recheck ourselves constantly to make sure that we are having healthy, appropriate boundaries with our friends, with our family. The way that this could be done is by thinking about the most sacred of spaces in the world, the Beis HaMikdash. And the Beis HaMikdash is a great example because the temple had many different areas. And not every place in the Beis HaMikdash was meant for every person in every single time. There was a time where we went to the Kodesh, and there was a time when we would come to the Azara. There are certain type of people in the world who are welcome to come. Ki beis tefillah yikari l'chol ha'amim. Everyone in the world, Jew and Gentile, Havdil alike, were welcome to come to the Beis HaMikdash, but not everywhere, and not in a state of impurity. Only if a person has gone to the mikveh and it was tahor could they ascend the mount. Only men had one certain place. Women had an Ezras Nashim. Leviim had a certain place to stand. Kohanim had a certain place to do their place. Guests during the Simchas Beis Shoeva filled the Azara. And on the most holy of days, the most exalted of people, a representative of the Jewish people, at the most sacred of times, the Kohen Gadol enters the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Now, it's not just on Yom Kippur, Emes Manedar, Haya Kohen Gadol, that we can enter into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Whenever we create a sacred, private space, Beino Lebein Kono, between us and Hashem, or between us and the ones that we love the most, between friends or between partners, we are creating and replicating a Kodesh HaKadoshim. There's a place where we welcome visitors and guests and strangers to know us and to interact with us in a certain way. And then there's a place where we have our family that's a little bit more inside, a little bit more private. And there's a place where even certain family members are not welcome. Certain parts of the house, perhaps, that are more private. And then even within the most intimate and private of relationships, in the place where Tznius is most expressed, even there, even in the Holy of Holies, where the Kohen Gadol only goes once a year, the most private inside of places where you would think the highlight of the year should be that all of Klal Yisrael is together, the whole world is waiting for the Gzar Din, everybody should be watching, but instead Hashem tells us something very, very, very powerful. Go inside, close the door, experience yichud with me. That's how I want every single one of you, every single one of us to experience our relationship. Together, alone. And the Kohen goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And there in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, there's an Aron. And inside of that Aron, there's Luchos HaBris, and there's also the broken tablets that represent all of the mistakes and distance and alienation that we experience by the Chet Ein Gimel, by the Chet Egel, which is the headquarters, the Meshech Chachma says, for all of our distance between us and God. There, in that room, in that private place, in that sanua place behind closed doors where we reveal our yechida, our most true selves, our highest selves on the highest day, in that moment, there's an Aron Kodesh that remains closed. That place remains private. Even in the most private place within a relationship, there are things that we share and there are things that we don't share. There are places that we open and there are places that we don't open. Living with the midah of Hatznei Alechet, as this step in Teshuva means knowing those boundaries, knowing those places, and living a life that respects them. When we received the Torah on Har Sinai, buzzers, bells, and whistles, the whole world went silent. 3 million women, children, and men shared this incredible divine revelation together, open. But those luchos didn't last. It was the luchos that were given the second time around, on that Yom Kippur day, when Moshe Rabbeinu went up and engaged HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a process of tikkun and shuva on behalf of Klal Yisrael. When Hashem says, Salachti kidvarecha, I forgive you, in the privacy, in the intimacy, in the tznius of the second revelation, which are the luchos shnios, where we find forgiveness. The final step in shuva is taking everything that we experience in the world and bringing it inside, experiencing it beino lebein kono, between us and Hashem. Now, if that's our mentality, then beficha, it's not hard to change our language in a tzanua way, to not share everything. That there are certain mitzvos and certain chasadim and certain activities and certain projects and learning and avodas Hashem that are wonderful to share and that are kiddush Hashem. We have an idea of having a siyum, of inviting people to celebrate our siyum, to celebrate the mitzvahs that we're beginning or the life cycles that we're celebrating. Barov am hadros melech. And then there's something beneath the surface. V'nekaloti od mizos. Something else, something special. Beino lebein kono, just between us and Hashem. Our own little secret, our own little world of sod, our own little world of privacy that we can reveal something just between us that we don't have to share with others. Kvod Elokim haster davar. Let's pick a project. Pick an avoda, a midah, something that we're working on. Of course, to share that with our loved ones. Of course, to be proud of that. To tell stories of ourselves at our own Shabbos table that we're proud of. Of course, to work with chaburas and friends and workshops and mentors and teachers and rabbeim. To work on these things and to share and do together. But also, something that's just between us and Hashem. Beficha, it's not hard. Talk to Hashem. Rabbi Nachman says that the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and end of all of this, the highest expression of tshuva, and the final gateway to tshuva is hisbodedus, is talking to Hashem by ourselves in our own words. It could be among people, it could be within our home, but even better if it's in a private, secluded place, a little bit nature, a little bit natural, so that we can awaken ourselves in a natural way, to speak simply to Hashem with tmimus, so we could sense God's presence before us, shivisi, to be able to express our love and feel the love Hashem has for us, vahavta, in an expansive way, in every aspect of our lives, our mistakes and our mitzvahs, our good things and the things that need rectification, in every facet of our being, b'chol derachecha, in a way which is private, tzanua, through a private conversation with the Ribono Shel Olam, to awaken that yichud, that connectivity called hisbodedus. La'asoso. When we have these moments, we have these experiences, and we have these great accomplishments, so who's not in 100 different WhatsApp groups? If you're not, so Hashem should bless you. Kol hakavod. But if we are, or on social media, or around people, or at a Shabbos table with friends, or sitting around in the back of shul, not during davening, obviously, talking about all the things that we're doing and interested in, let there be one thing, perhaps, that before we share it with others, before we talk about it, before we bring it from the inside to the outside, we hold on to it. We just hold the puck a little bit. And instead of sharing it right away, our experiences, what we're doing, what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, what we've accomplished, what we're eating, to just allow ourselves to experience that in that moment. Beino lebein kono. That's also an expression of Tznius. That's also an expression of somebody who's not just experiencing life externally, but striving to experience it internally in Pnimius. Everything has an outside and everything has an inside. There's a time and place for everything in God's world. Hashem should help us that in the merit of hopefully having humility to follow Reb Zusha's instructions, we've continued a pathway, a derech of drawing close to Hashem, of revealing God in every aspect of our lives in an expansive and loving way. And Yiratzon, it should be that all year round we should experience the sweetness, the joy, and the light, and the embrace of Hashem's love through Teshuva Me'ava, all year round, everywhere we go, and with everyone that we meet. And Emirtz Hashem will be blessed with revealed good to be able to accomplish Teshuva Shalema, and then God willing, the world will come to Teshuva Shalema, and we'll see the Gula Shalema V'Amitis from Hera.